Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our panelists and our attendees. It's a great pleasure to have you here. Very important, happy International Women's Day to all of you. My name is Veronica Cesco, and I work in the Office for Outer Space Affairs here at the UN in Vienna. Just a few remarks before we start. The event is being recorded. It will be later uploaded on our UNUSA YouTube channel and will be also available on the Space for Women website. If you have any questions, please feel free to just type them in the chat. The panelists, we will try to have a Q&A session towards the end of our event. And in the meantime, of course, if the panelists want to reply to the questions directly in the chat, please feel free to do so. We have 2 video recordings, and then we'll move into this moderated discussion with our panelists. Just to give some context about this specific event, so to celebrate International Women's Day, UNUSA has organized this event to discuss with some space experts how space technology and innovation can empower women and advance gender equality. And this event falls within the Space for Women program of the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs. In the video message of our acting director, you'll hear more about the Space for Women program. This event is also part of the side events program of the 67th Commission on the Status of Women. And the priority theme for this year is innovation and technological change, and education in the digital age for achieving gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. Do women and men equally benefit from technology? No, unfortunately not. Can technological progress perpetuate bias and inequalities? Yes, it can. Unfortunately, technological progress is outpacing progress towards gender equality. So we need to make sure that progress towards gender equality happens at a faster pace so that we can make sure that women and girls can benefit from technology. And with our panelists today, we will touch upon several elements related to this theme in connection with space technologies and the broader space sector. But let's now start with the core of our event. First, I'll share 2 videos from one, as I was saying, from our acting director, Nicholas Hetman, and then a second video from the president of the Canadian Space Agency, Lisa Campbell. We have 4 panelists with us today. One, the 5th panelist, unfortunately couldn't join in person, but she was kind enough to record a few replies to the elements we're gonna address today. And with this, I will just give you 1 second and I'll share the video.
Space industry is a pioneering field, one that fuels the dreams of tomorrow. It expands our horizons, unlocks countless opportunities, and betters life on Earth. Tapping the full potential of all society is imperative for advancing our efforts in this domain, and through it, in a broad range of other fields and activities. Unfortunately, we are not there yet. Women and girls remain underrepresented across the board of space activities. Women represent only around 20% of the space workforce and only 11% of the people who travel to space. These numbers speak for themselves. It is crucial we change this and change it fast, as the importance of women and girls in STEM and space is beyond measure. Their participation is crucial to advancing research, boosting creativity and productivity, even increasing profitability. At the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, we are committed to making a difference. Our Space for Women initiative promotes women's empowerment in space through awareness raising activities, capacity building, and encouraging women and girls to pursue space and STEM education and careers. We are thrilled to work with almost 100 mentors to inspire, guide, and motivate the next generation of spacefarers, astronomers, and engineers who can help, through their work, make the world a better place for all of us. Our efforts take into consideration inputs and recommendations from expert meetings convened annually to collect insights, informing future steps to promote policies and actions towards women's empowerment in the areas of space science, technology, innovation, and exploration. Looking forward, the work ahead of us is significant, but together we can rise to the challenge of dismantling gender stereotypes and inequalities on Earth and in space.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Campbell, President of the Canadian Space Agency. I can proudly say that equity, diversity, and inclusion are core values of the Canadian Space Agency and the Government of Canada. We recognize that a diverse and inclusive workforce leads to greater innovation and economic growth, which ensures that the benefits of space can reach everyone. Since 1995, the Government of Canada has been committed to the Gender-Based Analysis Plus, an analytical tool used by all federal departments and agencies. It ensures that their policies, programs, and other initiatives are responsive to the needs of diverse groups of people, including women and girls. Canada's space strategy highlights the importance of having a diverse workforce in the space sector. In light of our participation in moon exploration, Canada is committed to encourage companies in the space sector to actively consider women and other underrepresented groups in their hiring plans. The steps we're taking today have the potential to make real changes when adopted by the global space community. We've made good progress so far, but we all have work to do to better empower women and girls everywhere and to make the space sector more inclusive. In Canada, women make up 28% of the space sector workforce. To help bridge this gender gap, it's important for women to be role models and inspire others to pursue studies in STEM. We need to encourage other women and girls to prepare for the jobs of tomorrow and to be the next generation of leaders in the space sector. The topic you will discuss today is important for our future. I'm eager to hear your views on how technology and innovation can advance gender equality and empower all women and girls. I look forward to the outcomes of your discussions. On behalf of the Canadian Space Agency, happy International Women's Day.
Perfect. I know even though the acting director and the president are not with us in this moment, I really would like to warmly thank them for this video message. Now, before we go into the moderated panel part of this event, I'd like to introduce our panelists. So if that's okay, I'd like to go through their bios so you have like a better idea of who we are talking with today. Allow me also to say that they have all like amazing bios and they've done a lot of different things, but for the sake of time, I'm gonna try to do my best to give a brief introduction. So if I do forget something very important, please feel free to add it. Absolutely. So I'll start first with Sandra Kaufman. As I was saying, Sandra, unfortunately, is not able to join us. Sandra was supposed to join us, but right today, she's actually receiving an award. She's been awarded with the title of Doctor Honoris Causa by the University of Costa Rica. So this was actually, this commitment was clashing with our event. Sandra Kaufman is a scientist, a Costa Rican scientist. She's Deputy Director for the Astrophysics Division in the Science Mission Directorate at NASA headquarters. And she is going to be, she's the fourth woman out of 50 people receiving this award from the University of Costa Rica. And today, even though she's not live with us, we will also hear her personal insights on some of the elements that we will discuss. So I really wanted to just briefly introduce her. And then we have with us Basuti Bolo, Bazuti is an endowed chair of educational technologies and founder and CEO of Go to Space organization of Botswana. She's an advisory board member at the Global Alliance for Industry and Innovation and the Infrastructure Africa Director for Enabling Extraordinary Entrepreneurship in the UK. She's also the Space Science, Technology and Aviation Botswana Chair. And additionally, she is an ambassador for Women in Technology and Global Women for Good and part of the Global Leading Ladies of Aerospace. We then have Jennifer Breslin, Executive Director and co-founder of Futuristas. Jennifer worked in the United Nations system for over 20 years, where she grew or established science, technology, and innovation, STI, portfolios, including at UNDP, UNDESA, and most recently at UN Women, where she led this work. Jennifer, as I was saying, is now the founder and director of Futuristas, a non-profit organization that seeks to build a more responsive and responsible STI through systems and generational change, and by focusing on youth programming, policy, and ecosystem partnerships. We also have with us Katarina Hyunok Kim. Katarina is Principal Researchers Project Manager at the Korea Aerospace Research Institute and the National Satellite Operation and Application Support Center. She's been with the Korea Aerospace Research Institute since 2010, and her current research project is the development of the Earth observation application system using constellation of small satellites, and this is part of South Korea's national space program. She also acts as a board member of CARI's Women Advisory Committee and as a board member of the Association of the Korea Women Scientists and Engineers. Last but not least, we have Artemis Westenberg. She is president of the Netherlands Association for Women's Rights and President Emerita, founding member of Explore Mars. She spent many years supporting analog missions, and later she established Explore Mars, a non-profit organization in the US to move Congress to task NASA with putting humans on Mars for exploration. In 2019, she stepped down as a president and director of Explore Mars to continue the human space flight to Mars advocacy in Europe and with the organization Explore Mars Europe. With this, I know that's a lot of information. I hope you retain it. And now I really like to start with our panelists. So if you had a look at the concept note and read the introduction to the event, you might have seen that we will talk about several elements related to space. So why is space important? How does it contribute to SDG? And we will also talk about gender equality and hear like the personal insights of our speakers. I'd like to tell to the speakers to please feel free to jump in and reply to the questions if you'd like to add something to the comments of our colleagues, our other panelists. Please do not hesitate to do so. And indeed, please keep your camera on and your mic off if you're not speaking. So with this, let's get into the juicy part of the event at last. I would like, allow me also to say one last thing, is that I think here in the public, among our audience, there is not the usual space crowd. We have that, but there's probably like somebody who doesn't know much about space and doesn't know much about how space supports development on Earth. So that's why I want to start with this basic question, which is, why does space matter and how does space advance the Sustainable Development Goals? And with this, I'd like to give the floor to Jennifer and ask this first question to her and see what she can tell us about it.
Thank you, Veronica. It's really a pleasure and honor to be here today with all of you. So at the broadest level, I think space really represents humanity's sense of wonder and imagination and desire for knowledge. And these are kind of positive mindsets and orientations that lead to discovery and can kind of advance our collective goals. But on a more concrete level, we've seen that space science, technology, and exploration has brought very many practical benefits that contribute to the realization of the SDGs. So we see benefits in the area of mapping, monitoring, and planning around environment, climate change, land use, water and food security, urban planning, disaster prevention and response, health and epidemiology. Space provides infrastructure for education and communication. And in developing new products and approaches, we see new material development or testing of circular systems, which we know are so important for sustainability. And it also can help advance decision-making and accountability, and through using data and decision support systems or exposing environmental and human rights violations and so on. The list is quite long, and UNOOSA has done a very good job of mapping the benefits of space for the Sustainable Development Goals. So I really encourage everyone to go and look at that work. And as we know, gender equality cuts across all of those issues that I've just mentioned. So there really isn't an area where we shouldn't be looking at realizing opportunities, mitigating risks, or understanding women's differentiated experiences with technology and space technology. But I'll just give a few very kind of examples that relate directly to the empowerment of women and how space technology is being used to those ends. So we can see that in Tanzania, they're using Earth observation and GIS technology to map land rights for women in creating the mobile application to secure tenure. And as a result, that supports more sustainable and equitable land governance. The Geospatial Rally for Women project, which is taking place in Costa Rica, Honduras, and Guatemala, and is done in partnership with JAXA, is centered on rural women and the design and creation of a CubeSat program where they train women in the use of GIS technology and then develop applications that are determined by women's needs in the area of climate resilience. And one of the programs there has focused on empowering women to use this technology for flood control. The Server Amazonia program and the Cocoa Peru Alliance have joined efforts to promote gender equality and raising the participation of women cocoa farmers in monitoring of their plots using space geospatial systems. The CJIR gender program uses geospatial information and socioeconomic data sets in a methodology they've developed for identifying climate change and gender inequality hotspots, which in the context of agricultural and food systems leads to low adaptive capacities. So they're looking at this technology to help redress that. Then there are examples that are not related to Earth observation technologies, say around women's health, where you can see the spin-offs from some of the space science and technology and how that ends up benefiting people. So examples are technologies that have been developed for temperature control in astronauts' gloves, or issues with compression for astronauts in space that have then been used to help with women who have postpartum hemorrhaging and can use that compression technology, or temper control materials that then aid women who are experiencing menopause systems. So there's all of these very interesting spin-offs as well that we see. So anyway, these are just a few examples, but we're not seeing this kind of systematic benefit quite yet of space benefiting women and girls around the world. So this is what we really need to focus on to ensure that these benefits are deliberate and intentional and systematic in nature.
Thank you very much, Jen, and thank you for highlighting all these examples. Now, I'd like to go to Bazuti and see what she has to say when it comes to the question, why does space matter and how does it support sustainable development on Earth?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I can say that space matters. If you look at what is happening in space, you will find that it also affects the Earth environment. So we all have to know what is happening on the Earth environment. If you look at the interaction between space and Earth, sometimes you find that we experience a lot of climate exchange, but we have to understand what are the causes of the climate change, and also what are the effects. What do women do, like women being do, that contributes to the climate change. Also, if you look at space is for everyone. We can't say that space is for only one nation or so. We all benefit from space natural resources like the sun, the wind, and so on. So there are so many things that needs to be done, like to monitor the space environment and also the Earth environment. So why we have to learn space is that if you look at most of the SDGs, all the 17 SDGs, they are linked to space science, technology, and engineering. Because what we have to do is that the space science technology act as a tool to assist in managing all the resources that are on Earth and off Earth. For example, as Jennifer has already said, that space technology or Earth observation technologies is used to monitor like our environment. It can be natural resources, it can be water, it can also be anything that human activities can harm the environment. So with the, for example, when we talk of space and education, SDG number 4 for quality education, what type of quality education can we offer, like the space offer? If the government or nations can focus on the quality of education that is linked to space science technology, everyone could do much, because you find that space science technology provides infrastructure for online learning. Online learning, each and every student or even parent, wherever is, can benefit from that, because you'll find that women, they are less represented when it comes to learning, because women are the one who find that they are at home. Even young girls, that the one who are cooking, sometimes find that they won't do much. So if those resources or infrastructures can reach them wherever they are in rural areas, they can easily learn and also be competent like any other student or any other women in other regions. For example, now we see Africa is now launching different types of satellites, because we have realized that we are still behind when it comes to space science technology. So Africa need to be empowered, need to be assisted, and also funding, and also to be trained on the use of space science technology. For example, when we experience the pandemic like COVID-19, we find that most of the African countries were less covered when it comes to education, but advanced countries, those countries with infrastructures like internet, so they were able to take their student, or the student were able to learn from home. But for other regions, it was not easy. So that's why it is very important to introduce space science technology in the curriculum in the curriculum based on the quality education. So when you look at the environment, we experience different challenges every day. Disasters like climate change, heat waves. So how do we monitor that? You can't monitor the heat waves or the environment globally by using physical or manual tools. So with space science technology, can monitor that environment at a global level and can see what is happening where and why. So space science technology is very important for sustainable development goals, like to achieve the sustainable development goals. And the other thing is like, when you talk of water, so there's plenty, a person can say that, okay, there's plenty of water, but sometimes find that the water is available, but is no quality. So the space science technology can assist in monitoring or assessing the water quality as well, so that you can differentiate the volume of water and the quality. So that's for now. I can just give these examples for space science technology and the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Basuti, for your extensive reply and also providing other examples. Allow me to share with you the comments, the insight from Sandra Kaufman.
Space matters because it helps us improve science, technology, innovation, and all of the space related aspects not only helps us with better data, but it also helps us with better technology. And all of these things improve our lives here on Earth, not just the life of men, but also the life of women.
What would you like to add to what was said?
Well, what I would like to add is the fact that more and more research tells us that when you ask kids of about 7, 8 years, whether they're interested in space, there is no difference between boys and girls. Both are, interested in the technology behind it. They are fascinated by it, and not just because it's sexy, but because it's interesting and it piques their curiosity. Now, by the time the girls and boys are 12 and 13, then the boys are still, into space and they want to do science, and the girls very often aren't. And so research has been done, of course, why this happens. And apparently it happens because we give girls and boys, when they are graded for the various subjects in their classes, a different message. A boy that gets a C in, mathematics or science is told, if you're really interested, you apply yourself. This is only a school grade. You're in the 10, 15 years from now, you can learn, and, perhaps you'll have to redo a class for a year, but, you'll get there if you really want it. Now, the girls are told that, perhaps if you only have a C, you should do languages, or one. So the message is different. That apparently is the problem. And now during COVID, together with Janet Ivey, I taught kids from all over the world a free class in STEM. And if I'm honest, the kids that came to these classes very often had, wouldn't be the average kid in a classroom that you would think, oh, this is going to succeed somewhere. But, quite a number of them, had their problems. Now, what Janet and I found that as long as you believe in these kids, they excel. Because our kids, to our big surprise, perhaps not of their parents, but as teachers they kept winning prizes. Science prizes, NASA prizes. And we thought, these are just a bunch of kids that found our free classes online and showed up. How come they, all of them, various ages, keep winning these prizes? Apparently, believing in the kids is far more important than whether their science or their math is the best. From there they will go. So that's one of the things that we need to establish. Now, the other thing is, if you want to have a NASA communicator or a Korean communicator in space or in Africa, then perhaps you should get an alpha, a language person, and train that person in enough, space technology that the person knows how to communicate. Because over the years, we have found worldwide that it's much harder to have a science person, an engineer trained in communicating this in the right level to all of the audience than do the other way. So the message to the girls should also be, now, what if your math really sucks, like mine? I couldn't do algebra to save my life. And that's not because I'm not interested in it. It's just, it doesn't speak to me. But I'm quite capable in explaining to you how the escape velocity of a rocket works. Because, I've been taught that. I can follow, how a rocket engine is built. I'm a linguist. I'm a historian. But, I've been taught all the other things because I am very interested in science. It's just because, they say you need to be able to have a certain level of algebra or you're a bad scientist. Funny thing is, though, that I can do, equations in science. So apparently algebra is really a different field, not really conducive. So it's also the way what I'm saying is, worldwide, we've set a certain standard. If you're not a mathematician, you can't do science. Really? That's not true. And so we're actually keeping kids and girls out of this field on a rule that doesn't really apply in real life. And so, this is a really bad thing. So if we want to have kids going there, now there's one thing that wasn't mentioned about space. Before we did space, sciences had all these walls around them. You had medical science, you had geological science, and everything was separate. What space did for us is it made it imperative that we work together with scientists from different fields and that we find the common ground and we strengthen each other. And that's actually what space brought us, that, medicine and environmental sciences need to work together because, there's interaction, and many of these other fields. That's something that very, very often is overlooked, but I think it has made our lives on planet Earth in the last 60 years much better.
Thank you very much for your comment. And actually, it's true, this multidisciplinary aspect of space sometimes is overlooked. As you were mentioned already, some practices, you talked about space education, you talked about having kind of, going like, if you can't do science, you can't be related to that word, but in reality you can be anyway a communicator. And here I think like we can already like go into the next part of the topic, which is like, what are the policies, the practices that are helpful, that we should implement to attract and retain women in the space sector, to achieve gender parity and ensuring that women are in leadership positions. So what are some policy measures and practices in the sector that we can implement? And here I'd like to ask the question to all of you. I don't know, maybe if you want to start, Artemis, given that, please.
Yeah, there's one thing that we very often overlook is that, learning how to do something is, what's given to you as tasks. Now let's go to gaming. Girls and boys both do games, computer games, right? And research has shown that boys do computer games to win. Girls do computer games to finish a task, which, good game developers know. So they develop a different type of game that might speak more to girls than to boys. Now, this means that also when we're trying to attain girls as a workforce in space or in technology in general, then we have to give them a different outlook. It doesn't mean whether you need to be the best of the class. You need to be able to end a task, to be successful in that. And that's a different message. And like I said, at the moment, our school system and our whole system is too much like you have to win the best. But remember, Einstein didn't have A+ in his school career. I think he was like a B student. So he wasn't stupid, but he wasn't just not the type of person to thrive in the way, education was done. So what we're doing really, we're measuring people whether they are thriving in the educational system, which is not the aim for their life, because we want them to thrive in society, which means that we have to adapt to the various different ways of how we do things. And why are girls different than boys and boys? Perhaps it's just socialization. So it's something that's, it's not nature, but it's nurture. And if so, then we need to recognize that, and we don't have to beat ourselves up that our nurture is wrong. We just then have to adapt the nurture to boys and girls differently, and we still get a wide variety of people applying science and all the other technology, and not just all the, what the girls are supposed to do, caring and health and that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Artemis. Jennifer, what is your opinion on that? What would you say are some policy measures and good practices?
So I think I'll answer that like primarily with regard to women's empowerment on the ground. And less so around the practices of getting women into the tech sector, which is extremely important. Looking at education and very holistic policies in the space sector and organizations to attract and advance women into decision-making positions. So that is critical. And we won't have transformative space technology without that piece, but we also won't have it if we're not doing more around really looking at the kind of totality of the research, development, products, services, applications of the space sector as well. And so this gets into the area of gendered innovations, and taking a gender lens to all of the work of the space sector. And there's some really very good tools that are out there, tools and practices that are out there that really could be more widely used and amplified. And so the Canadian Space Agency is one such good practice. And we already heard a little bit about that, their gender-based analysis within the government. So that applies government-wide, and it's a rigorous method for assessing systemic inequalities, and looking at gender issues within that, within Canadian government policies, projects, initiatives, grants, and budgets funding, very important. And so the Canadian Space Agency is also using this methodology and looking at all of the work that it does. And that is essential. And I just wanted to note on that having these tools and this analytical framework is critical, because it's looking at gender versus, having more women. Having more women is important, but women does not equate to gender equality expertise. And what we really need is that expertise present. So I have my personal experiences of women, but I may not understand kind of the larger theories, tools, approaches around gender equality that would really have an impact for women on the ground. So we need people with that expertise and knowledge, whether it's men or women, embedded in these systems and embedded in meaningful ways. It's not a checklist activity. None of this is. So I think that's a really important distinction to make as well. The Server Geospatial Initiative has also adopted a gender lens in its work. And so they do work around climate, it's called Bringing Space to the Village. So they do work around climate change, food security, water, disaster land use issues. And they've also integrated a systemic gender strategy into their work, and a gendered action plan that guides all of their programs. And so they look at that in terms of the content that is produced, in women's access to technologies, and also in professional level participation. So that they look at their activities, their services, monitoring, evaluation, and the gender dimensions of those. They have a very strong focus on their services and engaging women and women's organizations in co-design and co-creation of services using this data to benefit them. They're co-implementers. And they've actually just released, I think over the last 2 days, a new gender analysis tool, which really looks to empower and promote women as co-developers in the design process. So I think that's something that we can all look to. And then another example is the Space Enabled Program at MIT, which does a lot of work again with Earth observation data and communities in Africa. And they are really looking at how they can combine the data with systems architecture and participatory design, so that when you are developing decision support systems around environmental issues, for instance, you have the participation of women, women's organizations, and the gender perspective built in from the beginning. And again, that has a much more transformative effect. So they also have their own methodology there. So all of these tools are available. And we can adapt, ones that exist to the space sector. So we need to really, I think, focus on that and their use and their widespread adoption in public, private sector, academia, et cetera, in space work. And I just wanted to say something about some of the work that I do, which is around shifting the narratives of space and awareness around that. And I think, Artemis, you spoke to this a bit, but like how young people conceive of space can be quite limiting in many ways. And so I think we really need to do a lot more on that front. Maybe it's easier with the next generation, the general public as well. But I have a project called Model Mars, which invites young people to imagine future societies on Mars in order to create better societies on Earth today. And we offer young people a simulated problem-solving experience where they can really reimagine and rewrite societies and explore linkages between science and technology and society, and then connect efforts in the space sector to benefits on Earth. And we really enable young girls and women and young women to articulate future and space narratives from their viewpoints, which we don't often hear, and then provide them with skills and opportunities to translate this into real world action. And so this is part of our effort to help change how space is perceived and to democratize space and ensure that it responds to all of humanity. And just one last point, which is that I think that when we're looking at also the kind of women in tech and in space, we need to really understand the power dimensions there. So rather than looking at it as a numbers game, we really need to understand influence and power and really address that element as well, or we're not going to get as far as we want.
Thank you very much, Jen, and thanks for highlighting all these different tools. I think that you really highlighted some very important aspects, and always on the same question. So policy measures, good practices. I'd like to hear the opinion of our other panelists. So Basuti, would you share with us your opinion on that?
Yeah, thank you, Veronica. My opinion is that for me, I'm just looking at another angle. I'm thinking if the government can implement, like start space science technology or space science at a lower level, like at kindergarten, primary school, so that the students have to understand what is space. Because if you talk of space nowadays, somebody could think of astronomy and astronauts only. They don't know that we are using space or we are living space every day. For example, we all use a mobile phone, we all use internet, but somebody can use internet every day, but doesn't know that this internet is linked or is linked into space. So if we can empower these young people with knowledge of space, I don't think that we won't go wrong, because everyone will have the knowledge of space, and they will start to also to think critical on what to do or which career do they want to pursue and to achieve other goals, and also to dream big just because of that. For example, another example is that also we have to include our leaders. No matter how long we can discuss this, if our leaders are excluded, because they're the one who take decision on the implementation, on the funding, and so on. But if they have that knowledge, they can also invest into space science technology or into education, because they are the one who they're decision makers, and they're the one who the overall of everything. So with policies, I believe that, you know, women, for example, if I give an example of myself, I raised my kids until they are grown up. Then that's when I started to go for further studies to do my master's. So I'm currently doing my PhD at about 50 years. So if you look at that and you compare to a male person, you find that the male people find that they will have finished their education at an early age, because they don't have anything like to stop them to be at home raising the kids. They will support the kids, but they differ from a women. So if there are policies that encourages women or that support women so that they can be trained until she is tired or say no more. That will be the best way of empowering women, because sometimes you find that women also, they have knowledge, they have skills to share. They are powerful like any other women being. They can also build the world they want. So if they are left behind, nothing can happen. Like, for example, there are policies that, or policies, for example, for education. Sometimes one that they will say, okay, this sponsorship or scholarship is up to 35 years or less than 40. But at 40, you are still raising your kids. And after 40, you still want to do something for the world, and everything is closed. So for me, I'm saying, let every woman or a girl continue to with the education until her herself says, now I stop here, without any policies that block or that stops her. So that's what I can say for now.
Thank you, Basuti. You're bringing in a new element, actually, that I think it's also very important. Katarina, is there something that you'd like to add on top of this?
Yes, as Jennifer mentioned, I fully agree. Not just the number, but also qualification of women is very important. But still, underrepresentation of women in space sector is a critical issue. I have another story with the Swiss Space Korea. In our kickoff meeting, we asked the girls what their expectation is. A girl from Science High School told us she wanted to meet a real scientist working in research institute in person. When I heard it, I was very sad. But unfortunately, it's a real situation. The women professionals known to the public as scientists are very rare in Korea. When we look at the employment ratio of women in the STEM-related National Research Institute, most of them are under 20%. At KARI, we have around 8%. We have more than 1,000 employees, and among them, less than 100 are female. And we look at the women scientists and engineers in management position, it's much worse. On average, under 10%. At KARI, 2.5%. We have currently three female managers, but none of them is from research or development department. So, but the positive thing is our government has recognized the gender issue and is planning to improve the gender parity in science and engineering. There is currently a monitoring system with the annual target ratio of women in new employment and in promotion, especially in public sector. In addition, the Ministry of Science fully supported the second Space for Women expert meeting last year in Korea, and will further support the initiative with statistical research with the UN. And I hope this will contribute to raise awareness on gender parity in the space sector, not only in Korea, but also worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katarina. And indeed, while there is still lots of work to do, I'm really happy to see that Korea has decided to step up their efforts and continue working together. So I'm really happy about this. Let's hear from our speaker, non-live speaker. Just wanted to share with you her comments on this specific point.
I always say that everything starts with elementary school, right? You have to plant those seeds when the girls are small, and you have to continue to water them like a little plant, right, until they get to high school and then college, and make them understand that they too can really change the world, that they too can study science, that they too can study technology, that they can too, come up with inventions and innovations. The fact of the matter is that men also have to learn all these subjects, right? They are not born learned just because they're men. They also have to go to school, and it's not whether we're good or bad at math. It's how much effort we want to put into learning the subject. so it is trying to continue to encourage girls to pursue these types of careers. But more importantly, make sure that once they get to college, they stay and they actually graduate, and then to continue to support them so they can advance in their career, so they can become contributors, full-fledged contributors, and with leadership positions and everything. Sometimes even though women are pursuing more and more engineering careers, they get stuck at a certain level and then they don't advance. And so it is important that we help them advance. And for all of us women out there, all of us who have advanced in our careers, many doors open to us. And now it is our jobs to keep those doors open for the ones that are coming behind us, and we need to lend them a hand and help them.
It's great to hear those remarks. Now, so I think definitely, we heard several aspects related to what we can implement, and it's not just about increasing the number of women and girls in the sector, but it's also like making sure that those numbers like transform also in a better expertise, more expertise on how to have that gender equality on, for instance, technology and innovation. Now, we have 15 minutes left, so I'll ask our great speakers to be brief, because I'd like this moment, like I'd want all the participants to listen to these, as they will share some personal insights, something a bit more, again, personal. So I'd like to start with Artemis and ask her, can you share, maybe a personal insight of a challenge or success, something that was particularly important for you?
Well, for years, I would walk the halls of Congress to try to get NASA a better budget and to try to get NASA the assignment to put humans on the moon and Mars. And I would talk to senators, congressional representatives, and they would say, oh, I love space, but my voters don't care. And then in 2012, I had a light bulb moment, and I was smart enough to ask, how do you know? And so my advice, and then of course they said, oh, I simply know. And of course you don't. So then Explore Mars organized a national scientific survey, and we found out that Congress was completely wrong. Not alone did the Americans, 74% of them believe that 20 years from then, 2033, Americans will be walking on Mars. Also, Congress also always told me my voters don't care about science. When asked why would we go to Mars with humans, the answer was actually not to show that America is the leader in space, but to learn more about Mars. So science for science sake. So like I said, Congress was completely wrong. And with this report, we, Explore Mars, could, show Congress, this is what your voters want. How about it? And as we also asked the expert, is it possible, or, don't we have the technology to do it? The answer came back that Mars is hard but doable. So with these two answers in 2013, we went to Congress, and in 2014, it was announced NASA was now going to do a human spaceflight to the moon and Mars. And, we all know where it's going now. I mean, the Artemis missions to the moon and Mars. So what I want to say to girls, speak up when you have something to say. Dare to ask the hard questions, because the fact that you are a common sense person, perhaps not the expert, but still you have common sense. And if you think, hey, why do they say that? Ask. That's what I do here at the Commission on the Status of Women. I go in all these panels and I ask the hard questions, not because I'm the greatest expert, because I can think. That's the same for if you want a career, in any kind of career, speak up for yourself. Don't be this meek, I don't know what they call, nice girl. Remember, nice girls might go to heaven, but, brave and outspoken girls go anywhere. Make sure you go anywhere.
Wow, thank you very much, Artemis. That's really, really inspiring. Let's hear now what the other panelists would like to share. Basuti, so from, can you share a personal, your insight of a personal challenge or success that was important for you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for me, ever since when I was a young girl, my dream was to be an astronaut. But I didn't reach to be an astronaut then I ended up doing what I like. I followed my dream. As you can see me today, I'm living my dream and I can advise, I can mentor others. And the good thing that I have achieved is that I've been doing mentorship, just volunteering to learn from others, also to teach others. So last year I managed to register for an organization, go to space, to mentor, to teach, to train youth, women and girls on the space, science, technology, and also to the community, and also focusing on the leaders. Like I said, that if you can't involve or include our leaders, sometimes we cannot do much, so they have to be empowered. So I was so excited because the event, when I launched the event, it was so successful because there were many people from all over the world, USA, Australia, Africa, inclusive of the ministers of science and technology, education, all over the world. So I was so happy to achieve that. So to any girl or woman, I can say that follow your dreams and never quit. This STEM program, sometimes you find that you will face a challenge. Sometimes because you are in a male environment, your mindset, you just think of, these people, they're not assisting you or they're ignoring you. It's not that they're ignoring you, it's only the mindset. So just be with them, they will empower you and you get full support. And never listen to any negativity on your dream. Just drive what you want to achieve, you'll achieve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bazuti. As we, are here giving some advice or based on your experience, I'd like also to hear from Katarina and Jennifer. So let's go with Katarina. What would be your advice?
When I was young, I heard many times that the happiest way as a woman would be to marry a good man, have children, and support them without need to work for money. When I informed my parents that I want to go abroad for my study, they were not willing to support me. They thought when a woman studied too much, it would be difficult to marry a man. But I didn't give up. And finally, I've made my PhD in Germany. Now my parents are very proud of me and very pleased to support me. Sometimes I think about if my parents were not so conservative, what I could do more. Now I fully understand my parents in their generation. However, to be honest, many times in my life, I used to hesitate to decide and think about my position as eldest daughter, sister, mom, and wife. It took a long time to find my way. For me, a first important milestone was a scholarship from Berlin state government in the scope of promoting women scientists in STEM. Financially, I could concentrate on my study, and it's one of the very few foreign students granted this scholarship. I was very proud of myself. And at the same time, I felt some responsibility to be active with the gender issue. So that's why I'm here today. Compared with Western culture countries, women and girls in Asia are more obedient and advocate family members. So we tend to do what our parents told us to do rather than what we want by ourselves. But the world is changing and asks us to encourage ourselves to achieve gender equality. So I'd like to say, don't be shy to speak up. If you don't say anything, they don't know what you think and what you want. Don't be shy to show your presence. If you want to be more inclusive, you need to show who you are and what you do. So every change we make now will be a small step for us, but it would be a giant step for our society. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us, Katarina. Let's hear what Jennifer wants to tell us.
So I think I'm going to be reiterating a lot of this. But I mean, I think my sense is that there's really no right path or singular way of getting to where you want to go. And you cannot sit there and think, well, I am this, or I didn't go to that school, or I come from here. And really, there are so many different entry points and different pathways to get to where you want to go. And I think that it's very important to take initiative, to put yourself out there, which we've heard, and really let that kind of curiosity and passion drive you.
In this, your lesson learned. Let's hear one last time what our Costa Rican NASA scientist, Sandra Kaufman, wanted to say on this.
The advice is that don't be afraid, right? It is, sometimes we put our own roadblocks. Our fears, our uncertainty, are worse than what anything that anybody can put in front of us. So we just have to look inwardly and say, I have the power to do this thing. I have the knowledge. I have the desire. I can do this too, and I'm going to do it and do it anyways, right? Feel the fear and do it anyways, and not give up just because somebody say no, you can't because you're a woman, or no, you can't because you come from Timbuktu or something, right? If you want to do something, you can do it, and just put your mind to it and do it anyways.
So thank you again to Sandra as well. And thank you, of course, to the Permanent Mission of Costa Rica, to the UN in New York, who facilitated actually this. So I'd like, just to thank all of you for participating in this event. I would say, well, we still have 4 minutes. I didn't see lots of questions in the chat. So I just want to give the opportunity to our speakers in case they have, one final comment. Yes, I see one. Please, Artemis.
Well, there's one thing I've learned from the ladies that worked around Obama in the Obama administration. It's reinforce each other. So you're in a meeting and Veronica says something that you go like, yeah, that's a good point. Then make sure that you, Artemis or Jennifer, or all the others, say that out loud. Because apparently that's the way, the echoing is the way that we make sure that our voice and our ideas as women are heard. This is not just in a government administration. This is in a science project as well. If you're there with 2 women and 10 men, make sure whether you like the other women or not, it's not irrelevant. Make sure you reinforce yourselves. That's how you do it. And ever since I read this, I've been doing it with groups of women, and it works, I can tell you.
Thank you so much for sharing this as well. Jen, I saw you unmuted yourself.
I agree. I reinforce that point.
I really like that, actually spot on, really. No, thank you. I hope that those who were connected online took notes of all this advice and lessons learned. I think there was really a lot to learn about today. So I would say, I'd like now to just, give some closing remarks and I'd like, I think, to, reiterate, I think it was, we had some examples of how space contributes to sustainable development on Earth and why it is important to educate women and girls in the STEM and space sector, make sure that they have access to the technology. As I said before and was said before, making sure, yes, we have an increased participation, but also the gender equality expertise. So because it doesn't necessarily, more participation of women doesn't necessarily translate into gender, more gender equality. So and we also heard a lot of tools, a lot of things, practices that we should implement to make sure that we attract and retain women in the sector. So I think there is a lot of, we learned, at least I learned, and I hope you also learned definitely many elements when it comes to the space sector and gender equality. And in the context of the Commission on the Status of Women, there are different asks One of them is to educate women and girls in STEM. Another is to remove barriers to technology and also digital work, and to enable women to create the technology that meets their needs. All of these need to happen in the space sector too. And all of these need to happen with the support of everyone, the efforts of everyone, regardless of their gender. With this, I'd really like, to conclude by saying that if you want to have more information about Space for Women, please visit spaceforwomen.unusa.org. Our next major appointment will be the Space for Women expert meeting that we are co-hosting with the Government of Canada on from the 30th of October to the 3rd of November. More information about it will be available by the end of March. And please do follow UNUSA for any social media, and follow UNUSA social media for any updates. I really hope that you enjoyed this event. And again, happy International Women's Day. And thank you so much to our panelists as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Feel free to reach out and ask questions.
Thank you, Basuti. Thank you, Katerina, Jennifer, and Artemis. It's been great having you.
Thank you, Veronica.